congenital heart problems. She's had 5 operations, open heart operations, this little tiny girl. And he said to me, under the Affordable Care Act, we no longer had lifetime limits, so we could afford to give her all the care she needed. I tell you those stories because, you know, the Republicans have tried to repeal it 63 times. They will never, well, you know, they won't tell you what they will replace it with, but it'll just go back to the way it was. If you have a pre-existing condition, lifetime limits, it will be, in young people, you are on your parents' policies until you're 26 because of the Affordable Care Act, right? So I think we've got to build on it. We've got to make it better. I want to get the costs down. I want to get co-pays and deductible costs down. I want to take on the drug companies because they've gotten into really, really big, indefensible price increases. And this is something that affects everybody, but it particularly affects the Medicare program, because if we don't get costs down for people on Medicare, we can't get them down for anybody. And we've got to require that Medicare negotiate for lower prices, buying in bulk like you can with anything else, and like our drug companies do with every other country. You know, that's how they negotiate. So we've got work to do, but I'm very clear about what it will take to make sure that we've got quality, affordable health care for everyone. You know, another barrier that still stands in the way of too many people is education. And here's what I want to say about that. I, as I said, am the product of really good public schools. I want every kid in America to have a good teacher in a good school, regardless of the zip code you live in. And, you know, I didn't know until I was the First Lady of Arkansas, and my husband asked me to lead a committee on improving the schools there, and then the work I've done all these years since, how many schools were so decrepit, dilapidated. You know, I used to have what I called the Chelsea test. I would go and I would say to myself, would I send my daughter here? And you know, there were a lot of places where I said gladly, I would be thrilled to. I mean, just the quality of the place and the teachers and the attitudes. And then honestly, there were places I wouldn't send any child to. I have been in schools in rural South Carolina that are just deteriorating, literally falling apart. I just was in Detroit. The Detroit public schools are so bad, you've got little kids going to class in rooms with mold and rodents. And you say to yourself, wait a minute, how can anybody in any position of authority, any official, live with themselves if that's what's going on? I mean, there's got to be better answers than what we're seeing in a lot of places in our country. So I want to apply what I call TLC to our public schools. That means I want to focus on teaching, because we've got to get a lot of good teachers and keep good teachers in the classroom. I want to focus on learning, which means we've got to provide curricula that every student in every school has a chance to really learn and go as far as he or she is capable of going. And right now, too many places have cut out everything. They don't have art. They don't have music. They don't have a lot of the basics that I took for granted when I was in public school in Park Ridge. And then our community. You know, our communities need to really embrace our schools. And we've got so many talented people living everywhere who can give of their time and their energy and their expertise. But then I thought, well, wait a minute. We have to worry about preschool. And I just saw a great preschool classroom here in this facility. Do any of you here in Vernon Hills have experience sending your kids to preschool right here at this facility? Boy, what a great opportunity. I want preschool education available for all our kids so that they get a better start to be successful when they go to school. And then I want to make college affordable by having debt-free tuition. And I am really excited about this, but as Ryan pointed out when he introduced me, I believe that we ought to focus on sending middle-class kids and working family kids and poor kids. I don't believe you should get free college if you can afford it. And last night in our debate in Miami, when Senator Sanders was asked, do you mean you're going to give free college to Donald Trump's kids and grandkids? He said, of course. Well, not from me. You're not going to see that. I want to help families. I want to help the vast majority of families in Vernon Hills and across America, because we have priced college out of the reach of too many families. If we have debt-free tuition for public colleges and universities, we can begin, once again, having more kids go to college and be able to complete college. And we also have to deal with the debt that you already have. Student debt is one of the biggest economic burdens that young people are struggling under. And here's what I want you to know. I go around, I ask people, does anybody here have student debt? Okay. Do any of you know what your interest rate is? Anybody have an interest rate higher than 8%? How much? Yeah, it's scary. You have a scary interest rate. 9%. 11%. Okay. I want a lot of, some of us don't have that experience, and a lot of us may not realize what's gone on. We haven't had interest rates of any amount in years. You can refinance your mortgage. A lot of people did when the interest rates got low. You can refinance car payments. Corporations can refinance debt. But we saddle young people and their families with interest rates of 8, 10, 12, 14%, I've heard. Think about how unfair that is. So let's refinance that debt. Let's get it down. Let's make it manageable. Now, I have to say, higher education remains one of the great equalizers and door openers for people in our country. And because it does, I do not understand what your governor is trying to accomplish. I mean, you've got some of your public colleges and universities that have said they're going to shut their doors or they're going to lay off most of their faculty. You have no budget. I mean, really, it's almost, I don't know what's going on in the minds of some of these public officials. I mean, you've got the Republicans in Congress won't receive President Obama's budget. They say he can't nominate, according to the Constitution, a successor for Justice Scalia. I mean, this is beginning to be incredibly worrisome. And anybody, Democrat, Republican, Independent, whatever you call yourself, we've got to get back to functioning. We can have disagreements in Washington, in Springfield. That's par for the course. But our founders understood no human being has the answers to everything. That's why in a democracy, you have to compromise. You have to reach consensus. You have to work with each other. And I have said, I will go anywhere to talk to anybody, anytime, in order to find common ground. That's what I did as First Lady, as Senator, as Secretary of State. It's really interesting to me. I have a lot of wonderful comments that Republicans have said about me when I'm actually working with them. Whenever I run for anything, oh my goodness, they don't have a kind word to say. But once I get there, we start working together. That's what I will do, because I know that the president has to figure out how to build relationships with the opposition, how to work with people who you do not agree with. but to get things done. So I will seek common ground, but I will also stand my ground on important principles and values. Now, let me just say that I also am committed to expanding opportunity and expanding that search, as Ryan said, for the more perfect union. So I will defend basic human rights. I will defend a woman's right to make her own health care decisions. I will defend Planned Parenthood, and I was honored to be endorsed by them. I will defend marriage equality and work to end discrimination against the LGBT community. I will defend voting rights. I was just in North Carolina, and my goodness, I don't know what part of democracy they are afraid of, but they are trying to make it really difficult for older people, young people, people with disabilities to actually vote. That is so contrary to who we are. I will also go after and do everything I can to reverse Citizens United, which has been a terrible, pernicious effect on our politics. I will also work to make sure that Social Security is not privatized, that we have a guarantee that will be available for young people. I will also do everything I can to assure that the VA is fixed, that the system operates effectively to take care of our veterans. I will continue to work for comprehensive immigration reform with a path to citizenship. I will work to reform the criminal justice system so everybody is equal under the law. And I will take on the gun lobby to try to achieve comprehensive reform measures. I know that's politically fraught. You hear a lot about all the powerful lobbies in Washington, and there are. I have tangled with them. I think I have a much better idea about how to deal with them than anybody else running. But I will tell you this. Yes, Wall Street, drug companies, insurance companies, big oil, they're all powerful. The most powerful is the gun lobby, by far, because it intimidates elected officials. It stands in the way of common sense reforms that have nothing to do with undermining the Second Amendment. Just ask yourself this. We have a no-fly list in America. People are put on it because there is credible evidence that they may in some way be connected to terrorism. The gun lobby does not want to prohibit people who are on that list from buying a gun in our country. That is absolutely absurd to me. And the other point I want to make is that I have gotten over the years to know many families of victims of mass killings, from Columbine to Sandy Hook to Mother Emanuel Church in Charleston. And the parents of the Sandy Hook victims are suing the maker of the AR-15 that was used to murder all those children. And, you know, every time I think about it, I think about what it must have been like. You send off your first grader maybe with a little backpack on his or her back, give her a kiss, give him a wave. Off they go to school, and the next thing you hear is that some crazed person has murdered so many of them. And I've met these mothers and fathers. So they know that they can't do anything to turn the clock back. They're trying to prevent any other family from ever experiencing this. But here's the problem. There was a bill passed in the Congress giving immunity to gun makers and sellers. So basically, you can't sue them no matter what they've done. You know, they're the only industry in America with that kind of liability protection. Cars can kill people. Prescription drugs can. Toys even can. And we can try to figure out how to prevent it from